what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it. Let's talk about things that we are most looking forward to during spring ball. And I will say this, or looking forward to, worried about, watching, whatever you want to, however you want to frame it. Are we being a little too cocky here locally with this LSU team? And I guess to answer this first, we need to kind of establish where our expectations are at. I feel like everybody's pretty much playoff or bust with LSU this year, right?
Yep.
Year three?
Yep.
I think that's fair. Well, I think it's fair in terms of like, you're LSU and it's year three under Brian Kelly, and this is why you pay him $10 million a year. Is it fair if we actually look at this team? And I was thinking about it this morning. It's kind of crazy. Like, if we're being objective, you have question marks everywhere. Maybe save for offensive line. I mean, you've got, like I said, the interior D line just looks like a bit of a train wreck. You've got a running back crew that is, I mean, what, you got two guys? And one of them is not going to be playing during the spring. Josh Williams, I think Josh Williams will be fine. You trust him, right? You got a wide receiver crew where you're going to be replacing two guys that are maybe like top 15 picks, top 20 picks.
Yeah.
You're replacing the Heisman winner of the best Heisman season. Like, you got to replace Jane Daniels' running ability. That's just like one little simple thing there. You got a new offensive coordinator from that Heisman season, right? The quarterback coach getting bumped up. Now, he's been a coordinator in the past, certainly, but this is his biggest opportunity yet. You got to, just look at the whole defense, right? Like, I think the defensive backfield to get better, but there's massive questions there.
Linebackers pretty much the same.
Linebacker's pretty solid. That's true.
Harold Perkins.
And even then, that's exciting. Like, I'm not someone who fears Harold Perkins moving in the middle. I don't mean fear in terms of making him ineffective. I think Blake Baker and Harold Perkins in the middle becomes – so fine, we can say middle linebacker or we'll just say linebacker and offensive line you feel good about. Specialists you feel good about as well. Damian Ramos has been great, solid. He's back once again. But, yeah, outside of that, and look, the return game hasn't been anything to write home about at all anyway. I mean, maybe you like the potential there with who's it from Mississippi State?
Xavier Thomas.
I knew it was slightly off.
I wish Howard played on this team because he plays corner.
Oh, that's
much needed.
Yeah. Then he just leave Miami. Anyway,
he got released. Yeah.
Am I off base there? Like, we're saying this should be a playoff team, and yet that's a lot of very important questions to have to answer.
I think it's valid questions, without question, as far as the personnel. Now, you feel better about the coaching staff on the defensive side of the football.
Very much so.
So that gives you a big positive when you're trying to maybe check some things off. And I think linebacker is the only position that you're kind of solidified at, because those players – not only did they actually get better on a bad defense, but because of what Blake Baker's done with linebackers in the past, that makes you feel even better about that group. But no, you're right. I mean, outside of offensive line and linebacker, everything else is, I wouldn't even say like a question mark, but it hasn't been answered. Like, we feel really good about Garrett Nussmeier and what he can be. I think we feel good about what this receiver group can be. Mason Taylor and tight end might put themselves into the category with the offensive line and linebacker as well. Like, they've got multiple years.
Well, they might be a more known quantity, but there's still questions about how good is that group. Mason Taylor was pretty solid last year, I would say. So, he has maybe potential to – but it's like I guess I know who the players are going to be there, but outside of Taylor, I don't know who else is going to be really good.
Yeah. It's a better situation than you had 2 years ago when it was like –
without a doubt.
You had two tight ends. And you had your offensive coordinator over there working with two tight ends. But no, there's guys that we feel like they can step up and hope that they step up, but there's still going to be a lot of question marks. And there's going to be a lot of position battles. Like, spring practice starts today. Yeah. I hope that those players realize this is where you go win a job in some of those borderline areas.
Well, and so that's kind of the reason for bringing all this up is to really reinforce how important this spring is. If when you have like Like when you have an upperclassman laden returning starter team, spring ball can feel like a bit like busy work at times, potentially, right? Now, that is not nothing in life is 100%. That's not going to be across the board. Anytime you zoom in on a roster, you're going to find areas in which it's important for them to really compete during this portion of the calendar. The difference with this LSU team is it's every position. There is playing time up for grabs everywhere, save for O-line, linebacker, and even then we got to kind of figure out who's going to rise and fall in the linebackers a little bit.
Yeah, the pecking order for who's going to be out there first, because like we saw Whit Weeks flash last year, and that is a player, like I'm excited for Blake Baker to work with him. Like that's a player that I think already showed flashes with no real leader at that position last year.
Yeah, Edub says, you're not solidified at linebacker. You hope you are. I would agree with Jake. I'd echo what Jake just said there. I think if you, and this is probably a byproduct, I'm not trying to be a watch the film guy, but this is probably a byproduct of us putting so much time into breaking down these LSU games. But no, I think you got a special one in Weeks, and I think Harold Perkins, like I feel completely confident again about Harold Perkins under Blake Baker, not just playing the position well, but producing, being a threat, affecting the game. Again, go back to Damone Clark's 5.5 sacks and 16 tiffles. That was from an inside linebacker spot. Okay, I think you can recreate that. So no, I do actually think you are solidified there. But no, it's probably the most important spring that I can remember in a while, because there's question marks everywhere. People have to kind of give. You're trying to instill confidence in the fan base that, okay, no, Garrett Nussmeier can be the guy. You can replace Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr.'s two outlier freaky wide receivers that are going to be leaving. You can get the defense back to where you need it to be under the coaching regime change. But again, it's it all comes in a year that Brian Kelly, since day one, has said this would be the big step forward year. Even last season, when there was a lot of hype about this LSU team. We had no idea the defense was going to be that bad. And there's a lot of talk. I mean, could they actually threaten for the West? Could they maybe even threaten for a national championship? And it ended up all falling apart. But even in the preseason, when it wasn't falling apart, Brian Kelly kept saying, yeah, this year we're going to be good. But like the third year is when it really comes together, when the multiple years of track laid by the process will really start to pop off and pay dividends. And it's like, okay, so that's the expectation that you set for yourself, and yet now you have a roster that is at a real crossroads in some areas, has a lot of potential in others, and really has seemingly none in that interior defensive line, at least. So, well, I'm excited to see what storylines emerge over the next couple of weeks. And if you're one of these players, like Jake said, you just got to lock in and understand the opportunity that you have. There is no single greater resource in college football than playing time, even in the age of NIL. And do you know why? Because playing time means NIL, right? Playing time means more money if you play well and you play a lot, especially if you're not someone who didn't have, like, maybe have the biggest profile coming out of high school or whatnot. And so if you want to achieve your dreams, you want to make money, you want to get them nice cars, you know what you do? You get playing time. You know how you do that? You go practice your ass off and you win that job. How you do that is by winning the pole position in the spring. Like, jobs will not necessarily be decided right now, but you can position yourself for fall camp to be the leader in the clubhouse. And so whether it's wide receiver, running back, like we said, defensive back, both safety and corner, edge rushers, outside linebackers, even some inside linebackers. Like there is playing time to be divvied up, and I want to know who's going to go out there and take it for themselves and not just expect it to be handed to them.
Yeah, one thing that I'll be paying attention to as well is who's cross-training in different positions on the defensive line. How many guys that have typically played on the edge kick inside because of need? And can that be a place where they earn themselves some playing time? And we talked about a couple of candidates for that a couple of days ago. You also have a lot of young guys that enrolled already from this last signing class that are going to have that ability maybe to go over there and take a position, right? I look at like different body types and like Gabe Relaford, right, coming over. He's been a defensive end, but, I mean, he's close to 270. And so, like, when I got to school, never played fullback before in my life. I went to a school that was like 5 wide, basically. And they're like, hey, if you want to play, if you want to get on the field, playing fullback is going to be the fastest way for you to do that. I'm like, well, sign me up.
Yeah.
Where do I go to gain weight? And Tommy Moffitt pointed me in that right direction because that's what I wanted to play. I wanted to get on the field, and I knew running back would come later on. So how many guys will buy in to that process of maybe changing their body, kicking down inside, knowing that there is plenty of reps there available, and, you know, forget all of, hey, man, I've always been an edge defender. I've always been an end. That's what I want to be. Do it for yourself. Do it for the team. And then 2 years down the road, you move out to the edge. I would want to show the coaches that I'll do whatever it takes to get on the field. So I want to see how many players will do that during the spring process as well.
You're good on those players, but oh man, that's kind of a commentary in and of itself on where the interior D line is at. Is if you end up in a position where you're
they're going to have
relying on a true freshman edge defender gaining weight and kicking down inside. But yeah, like you said,
you laid out the bodies that they have. They've already moved an offensive lineman.
Yeah, right now
over.
you have one guy that I would say is like starter level. You have one guy that I would qualify as okay backup, and then you have a JUCO transfer, freshman early enrollee, and an offensive lineman that just switched a couple weeks ago. That's wild.
Yeah.
That is as empty of a cupboard as you will ever find, especially here at LSU. I mean, but really just kind of in like just major college football in general.
And somebody asked in the chat, like, how at a place like LSU can you get to this point? I think it's because you had guys, in my opinion, make bad decisions.
You had 3 guys leave early.
I think Mekhi Wingo is the only one that should have contemplated leaving early and could have had a decision on his hands.
Mace Smith, George Jefferson, Conway. I mean, Jefferson did pretty well at the Senior Bowl, though, no? Huh?
No, he did.
Yeah.
He did, but I think he could have really helped himself coming back and being
getting
high-profile.
Bo Davis coaching
Yes.
and getting actual effective coaching for a year instead of a guy who got thrust into a tough position like John Jancic did last year. So, yeah, but 3 guys leaving early. That's how it happens.
That's how it happens. I probably didn't expect any of them to, maybe one.
Yeah. And it's impossible not to play the game that'll just drive you crazy of, what if you had announced the house move earlier?
Yeah.
What if that news cycle had moved a bit faster? Could you tell them behind closed doors, or did you need to play it so close to the vest because recruiting was going on? There's a lot there that you can kind of drive yourself crazy with. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.